Right. Hello, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to another 8 p.m. Live stream. So hope this finds you all well. And let me just see. So as you join in your numbers, as you can see, I'm streaming across all the channels. Hi, Jan, Harry, Chris. Um, Someone's already called for the arrest of Bill Gates. We haven't even got to that bit yet. I'm streaming here on Periscope, also on YouTube, also on Facebook. So hope you can join. As you join, do me a favor. Hi, Jed. I hope you're well. Also, do me a favor. Retweet this. Share it as widely as you can. So highlight Dr. Drekel, as many people as possible join in the stream. If you can do that, that would be terrific. And of course, suffice to say, usual routine, folks. Since most of you are on Periscope for this one, say if you like what you're hearing, send hearts. If you can send a super heart, etc., that would be really good. So that's basically the routine. Now I am conscious that as I broadcast to you, it's 8 o'clock. It's Thursday, and Connor rightly nails me in this one. Why aren't I out applauding? Yes, naughty me, but naughty all of you as well, because evidently, if you're here, I doubt that you're actually out ringing your bells and doing the clapping. Of course, I've never clapped, and I never will clap. And actually, just one point in this. I was thinking about this, and this is the moment to say it at 8 o'clock on a Thursday night. I frequently said on Twitter that we're living in 1984 in 2020. It is essentially Big Brother. It's state control on a scale. In Vance we trust. Let's put that one up, Chris. There's a top comment from a Blackburn Rovers fan as well. What about that? I lost my track of thought. We live in 1984, but guess what? We also live in Animal Farm. And shall I tell you why we live in Animal Farm? The reason we live in Animal Farm is, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Well, it seems to me that the NHS ones are more equal than the rest of us. And I have to say, I find that objectionable. I think we should all be equal. No one's better than anyone else, in my book anyway. However, as I say, it's all been noted. I'm sure people will have noted that you folks, hi Gaynor, that you folks have not been out clapping, and I shouldn't be surprised if the conformance squad come knocking on your door. So Valley Lynch says this is quite good. Put this one up. The lifeboat klaxon has gone off, and they're all out there banging their saucepans and singing. Yeah. In case you ever wondered, folks, people are much more easily manipulated than you ever thought. More easily than you ever thought. But anyway, I think the streams are working okay. Just want to check here. So as I do this, just bear with me. Yes, I can see the live stream working over there, and yeah, I'm good with that. So, right, it's all going fine. I'm glad you like the new look. Can you see, folks, that I've got the topics running along the bottom. There's a little ticker at the bottom of the screen, and you can see we're going to talk about hospital visits, hospitals in general. We're going to talk about the eye-watering costs to the economy that we're being plunged into, and last but not least, we're going to talk about vaccines. Yes, vaccines. So we've got a lot to cover this evening. It's in a short 30-minute soundbite. So try to keep it sharp. Try and keep it kind of rock and rolling. So hopefully that's going to be all okay with you folks. And we're going to start off with, let me just sort this here out. I want to start off with hospitals, because obviously our NHS has been central to fundamentally everything that's been going on the past couple of months. So let's have a look at this, shall we? Let's have a look at this headline. Coronavirus. The government, sorry, that's the wrong one. Try that one. Coronavirus. A&E visits in England down to a record low. What? A&E visits at a record low? But how can this possibly be, given that we're in the middle of a pandemic? Well, of course, it's obvious why A&E visits are at a record low. And let me share this with you as well when I'm at it. Look at this. If you can see this, this here. Let me just see if I can get you this here, folks. Hide. Yeah. So look at the numbers. Can you see the numbers here? A&E visits over the past year. So look what's happened. You can see it's people go into A&E, averages about 2 million a year. You can, or 2 million. It's like 2 million a month. 2 million a month. Look what happened when we started to get into lockdown. Look at those numbers plunge by about 3/4. So from about 2 million down to, what would you say, 800,000? That's the reality of what's been happening in our hospitals. And irony of ironies, I'm back. Irony of ironies, that's been happening at a time when there's even been more hospital spaces allocated than ever. So what's going on here? And I mean, it's pretty obvious what's going on. What's going on is that the government has scared people witless and they're afraid to go to hospital. People, even A&Es are remarkably quiet. Jed, here, let's talk to someone. Let's see this interesting comment from Jed. He says, David, I was in hospital Monday and you wouldn't know there was a pandemic happening. There you go. That's someone who's been in hospital this week. I've also spoken to people working in hospitals and intensive care units as well, and I'm pretty clear that there never was a tsunami that everything has been predicated on, and in which economic ruin has been fostered around. And at the moment, hi British Bully Bee, nice to see you on the and again, those of you continuing to join. The rush never came. The hospitals were never busy. Hi, Ambi, all the way from India. Nice to see you on the broadcast as well. So the numbers never came with COVID, but all the other wards were essentially, to a large degree, closed down. That's why we got TikTok dancing nurses. And gosh, I almost missed their routine. I think someone must have had a word with them at some point that it was so humiliating, so embarrassing, so unprofessional, even though some of the routines were quite good, that they seem to have stopped doing the TikToking. But they were TikToking because, as I said, and of course, naturally I was criticized for it, they were bored. They had nothing else to do. And that's the reality of it. So now what we have is a really worrying situation evolving. And it's this. We've got a lot of people with cancer conditions, with cardiac conditions, other serious health issues have stayed away. And I was just hearing about a situation where a mother was saying that her young child was suffering from a particularly egregious and harmful condition. But the mother was so scared of what might happen if she took her daughter to hospital that she didn't take her to hospital. And as the consequence of her not taking to hospital, the condition her young daughter suffers is even worse. So, and there's another interesting comment. You must read this one. Have a read of this. Look, no nurses or doctors wearing masks or gloves all the time I was in hospital. So, just what has gone on in our hospitals. I mean, I think what's happened is the government ramped the whole thing up in anticipation of something that never happened. And that's the awful reality. And the costs are going to be measured in forthcoming deaths and potentially ongoing deaths through other associated, but nonetheless serious conditions, cancer, cardiac, et cetera, et cetera. And so, so we have that's very disturbing when we consider those particular those kind of numbers. But if you want to talk about numbers, and let's talk about, I do like to give you facts. I hope you like this, folks. I like to argue based on facts. So here's some facts to consider. And the first thing is this headline that says the government is facing World War II sized bill for tackling the virus. Have you seen this? And then look at this. This is, sorry, wrong one. Public borrowing. I mean, this is an absolute horror show. If you look at this, folks, you can see the way UK borrowing. You can see where it was actually after the war. Look at the UK borrowing from 1946 to the 60s. Actually, the government, we were living within our means, modest as though they may have been. And then you can see how borrowing rose in the 1990s, fell again in the noughties. Then the crash in 2008 brought borrowing up till about 150 billion. It then dropped last year till about 55 billion, and the forecast is almost 300 billion. Now, I was on a webinar earlier today with a major financial institution, and they were talking about how do you compare this? How do you compare this with previous moments of financial crisis? Thanks, Chris, for the feedback. I hope you do all like the new format. It's something I'm getting into, and there'll be, as I say, special interview tomorrow night with Anne-Marie Waters live. But the financial analyst was saying to me that and others that you cannot, if you want to see an equivalence in the British economy for what's happening right now, you don't go back to World War II. You don't go back to the Great Depression. No, you go back to the 1700s when there was the South Sea bubble, which historians amongst you may remember wrecked the UK economy, and these wars between England and Spain. So this is without precedence over like 300 years. Now that's how bad it is with the financial the scale of the debt that the government's cranking up. And you know something, folks, it's all self-inflicted. The Chancellor is responsible for the furlough. I disagree with the furlough in many regards, because it's creating zombie companies. It's making some companies keep on their workers. I mean, I've heard this from employers. They'll keep them on until the day and hour the furlough ends, and bang, they're gone. Because at that point, the real reality of what's happened hits in. So, yes, Chris, you've worked every day and can't wait to be spending again. And yes, Jed, actually, so here's a suggestion. It'd be nice if you could split the screen when showing graphics of boss. I absolutely, there's a way I can do that. I just haven't quite worked it out yet. So bear with me in that one. So just coming back on topic. So the scale of this is massive. The numbers of unemployed are massive. Now, I know we talked about the economic recession last night, but you know, bit by bit, we're getting to see the scale of it. Hi, Jill, nice to see you, and Susan, all you folks joining. The scale of this is going to be momentous, and the only way the government can manage it, it's going to borrow. It's borrowing massively at very low interest rates, mind you. But that borrowing will be paid back, not by people like me and maybe some of you, well, maybe a little bit will. It'll be paid back by our children and our grandchildren and potentially their grandchildren, because the scale of debt is massive. You don't go from 55 billion to 300 billion. And by the way, the 300 billion deficit, I think, is optimistic. I think it'll be more than that. So just think about that for a second. You don't go for that kind of level of debt, and terrible things follow. Yeah, I mean, there's someone says, this is interesting. Again, a comment for you. Wife won't see this through. Her staff are on furlough, don't have a job to go back to. I mean, it's so sad, some of this, and most of it's unnecessary. Open the economy, let people back. That's what I believe needs to happen. You know, we've seen that the consequence of coronavirus, yes, it's very nasty and it's a terrible thing for certain groups of people, but for the majority of people, according to our chief medical officer, Chris Whitty, 19, what did he say? 99% of people would be unaffected. Well, that's right, actually. It's actually more than 99% because the death rate, I think, is about 0.4%. So, you know, in order to protect 0.4%, we're screwing everything. Dr. Dreckle says it's not a pandemic. Well, if it's not a pandemic, it's certainly a massive overreaction. And this is the point I want to say this now, so I nail it, so that in months ahead and times ahead, people will say, well, no one said at the time. Well, I'm saying it. This government has chosen the wrong strategy, and it is causing huge, unimaginable damage to our country in terms of debt and in terms of recession, in terms of unemployment. For whatever reasons they're wanting to postpone those unemployment figures, but they're coming, folks. Just like that comment that I put up from, I'll not repeat his name, but the chap who said his wife won't see this through. And that's going to be the case for so many people. You know, there's going to be so many people lose their jobs, lose their livelihoods. But then think about this, the other side. But the government needs to get revenues in. That's why we're all going to be hit with, as I said last night, extra taxes. They'll dress them up. They'll call them green taxes. They'll say different things. They'll hit business more, which is going to be counterproductive because the government knows the more you put up corporation tax, which of course the lefties love, the less corporation tax you actually get. The tax takes falls. Why is that? Because companies aren't stupid. They know what to do. I know what to do. So if you try to tax us too much, we take all necessary but nonetheless lawful measures to escape such punishment. I don't think, Chris, people will be retiring. I think 73 is probably quite optimistic when this one starts to work its way through. And the thing that's so bad about it all, the thing that's worst of all, is it didn't have to be this way. You know, the UK seems to pride itself on plunging into massive debt. And I've seen Boris Johnson tweeting about, well, you know, you can't put money before health. Well, actually, I don't think, nor can you entirely put health before money, because if you ain't got the cash, you can't afford your NHS. So all the people out clapping, you know, for the NHS, their taxes are going to fund the NHS. Remember, contrary to what we're often told, the NHS isn't a charity. There's some people earning vast amounts of money working in the NHS. It's a huge mega corporation, as well as being the biggest employer in the UK. I think it's the third biggest employer in the world. It's a huge, massive monolith. And if there's one thing, and Chris is saying, I mean, this is also coming to. Chris is talking here about public sector pay cuts, and the thing about the public sector is they've escaped everything so far, but there will be public sector pay cuts. Now, here where I live in Northern Ireland, what we've heard today is some councils have been saying that they're looking to put rates up Hello, can you see me? Am I back? I'm sorry about that, folks. Had a small network problem. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay. If everything's sounding okay. That was a unexpected nasty. Yeah, that's fine. Thanks. Yep, I know what happened, so that's okay. I understand what went wrong there. So yeah, I was just saying that the public sector, some of the councils were talking about laying off half their staff. So I'm not sure how that works with public sector unions, mind you, but the reality is that nobody's going to be immune from this one, and the public sector will not be immune. But yet, I hear some people, actually, trade unions, are saying, well, coming out and clapping isn't enough. We need a pay increase. I mean, are these trade unions mad? This economy is going into the biggest slump since the 1700s, and they think that they deserve, our heroes deserve, a pay increase. Well, I'm sorry, no, they don't. And by the way, yes, I agree. Here's a comment I completely agree with. Rates rises are grossly unfair. I only want my council to empty the bin. I'm 100% with you in that. I'd be quite happy to see councils abolished, and if the services, certainly for me, that they provide, I like to see those provided by private sector companies. We don't need, in many regards. Jed's right there again. Such common sense. The public sector needs to be cut by half or more. Well, amen to that one there, Jed. I agree with you. Vast, bloated, and of course, the other thing to understand is it's remarkably inefficient. So I'm just now shifting across the platforms here, so I can see different things. Yeah. The last thing I want to talk about is, just before we conclude, is vaccines. Now, I'm sure you've seen the news that, I think I've got something here actually. Let me just see if I can bring this one up. I don't think I've actually got it. Can I just pop it in there? Let me see. Hang on. Let me see if I can. Can I get you this? Yeah. So I saw a couple of things I wanted to share with you. I saw this story, which is typically French, actually, if it loads up here, and that is that it's saying that coronavirus, Sanofi, France resists the idea of US getting the vaccine first. Well, zut alors, the French don't want to see the Americans getting something. But then there's these people. Do you recognize this lovely couple? This lovely couple, I'm talking, of course, Bill and his wife, Melinda Gates. Now, there's a lot to be said here. I have to be very careful because these platforms at the moment are throttling back in my social media like you wouldn't believe. And that's annoying, but it's just the way it is. However, as you know, and this is factual, so there's nothing can be disputed here. The British, in particular, lockdown, but the global lockdown was significantly driven by the Imperial College modelling of Professor Neil Ferguson. Professor Neil Ferguson's Imperial College has significant financial donations from Bill and Melinda Gates. And we know that Bill and Melinda and Bill Gates has publicly spoken in the past about his belief that the global population's it's significant, it's higher than he thinks it needs to be. That's opinion. Everyone has their own opinion. But in what way do you actually bring down a global population? I'm not sure how that one works out, Bill. But can I ask you folks, is there anybody on this who is this? Hi, Jeanette, by the way, just trying to catch up with things. And Donna, is there anybody here would be up for taking a vaccine that had been the Bill and Gates Foundation behind it? Hands up, anybody in favor? Or if like me, you would oppose it to your dying breath, say no, because there's just no way that I believe. Yeah, again, you're all really sensible people. Yeah, so you see it all the same as me. Actually, oh, hang on, we've got someone. We've got Tom says, I'd have it, and that's fair enough, Tom. You're perfectly entitled to want it, but most of us, I think, take a clear view that we won't. Perhaps, Tom, you can tell us what's your reasoning for taking a vaccine that Bill and Melinda Gates' foundation was behind, because from my perspective, I think that we've waited 17 years for a safe vaccine for SARS, which is very close to COVID-19. We haven't had one 17 years, and now we're going to have a safe vaccine in what, a couple of months? Seriously, is that right? My goodness. So I think I'm just reading your comments here. I think we'd have to ask a lot of questions about the speed to market and the safety of any potential vaccine. Now, I believe actually that personally that vaccines are probably not the ideal thing to the ideal solution to COVID-19. I believe the best solution to COVID-19 is for most people to stay healthy, boost their immune system, take vitamins D, C, zinc, take these things, keep healthy, exercise if you can, get fresh air, get sunlight if you live in a part of the world where there's sunlight. And as Jed points out, let's drive herd immunity, because many scientific voices think that herd immunity is exactly the way to go. All of these things cost nothing. They don't require you to. Hi, Debbie. I like your update, though. Your garden was soon. Yeah, Debbie. I'm not saying I'll never do another one in the garden. It's just this enables me to do more things. So I hope you like the new format. Tom says, Tom, I'm really interested in what you're saying, because you're a different voice here, and you're welcome. But by the way, I assume it will be here faster, as it's a complete global effort to get the vaccine. Well, Tom, let me say, SARS was a global, it was seen as a global epidemic. At the time, a certain Professor Neil Ferguson was estimating millions of people would die from it. Of course, that didn't happen. But they still weren't able to perfect the, hi, Stevie. They still weren't able to perfect the vaccine, a safe one, in 17 years. We all get the common cold. Show me where the vaccine is for the common cold. There's not one. And the reality is, Tom, as far as I can see, that if there was an absolutely safe vaccine, tested and proven, and with a consensus that it actually did something, then that could be a consideration. But I'm just simply wondering how this vaccine could be here so quickly, and could it be safe? And I mean, I still fully accept, by the way, that COVID-19 is dangerous for the elderly and for people with younger people with immunocompromised situations and particular conditions. Fully accept that. Fully accept they need extra protection. But most of us don't. The protection most of us will get, by the way, is from each other. Humans, this is why I so oppose the lockdown. You see, I keep arguing that. Someone says, "Do you know anyone who's passed it?" No, I don't believe the vaccine. A vaccine has been passed. I don't see in any way how a credible vaccine can come. But I do worry about the fact that there's obviously lots of money to be made in vaccines. There's the suggestion is, if you get this, if someone comes up with a vaccine that fights and stops and fights COVID-19. Well, what about COVID-20? What about COVID-21, COVID-22? Is this something you're going to have to take every year? And how many billions of people are you going to have to inoculate every year? And what do you think the revenue stream around that would look like? So, these are all, I think, valid concerns regarding vaccines. And of course, it's a matter of every individual to make their own decision on that. But for me, my decision is that, yes, Chris, Gates has been doing tests in Africa for years. And as someone else previously pointed out, I believe India chased Bill Gates for some of this stuff. And I think some parts of Africa have as well, actually, for some of the results. So these are very troublesome matters that we really have to be very careful about how we consider them, but we should be doing it based on facts, not emotions. And I think that the facts would suggest to me that a vaccine for COVID-19 is extraordinarily unlikely. We shall wait to see. Now, we haven't covered Obamagate. Henry brings Obamagate up. I'd love to cover Obamagate. In fact, actually, I'd like to have one of these where we don't actually talk too much about COVID-19, because it's a bit repetitive and a bit depressing and a bit dull. So just to let you know before I go, that tomorrow night we're going to be doing a one-on-one interview with leader of For Britain. She's a good friend of mine, lovely lady, Anne-Marie Waters. So Anne-Marie Waters is with me here in the studio tomorrow night, and we'll be having a good old chat about hopefully not just COVID-19. I think, for example, there's lots of things like Brexit we could talk about. Henry does want to talk about Obamagate. The difficulty with that, Henry, is I haven't had my tea yet, and even much as I want to talk Obamagate. And by the way, quick thing on Obamagate: I wish he would go. I wish Obama and Hillary Clinton would end up in prison. I so wish that, but they won't. They're protected. And that's the awful reality of this one. But hey, listen, thank you very much for being here. Thanks for being part of this new nightly thing that happens at 8 o'clock every night on Periscope, on YouTube, on Facebook. It will get better and better. So I know there's little teething issues still. We'll get our way through those and hopefully provide you with something that is much more interesting than the absolute rubbishy stuff on TV. Ignore the mainstream media. Stick with people like me, hopefully, and we're trying to give you our insights anyway, and talk about the things that the others don't want to say. Well, I want to say them. Listen, thanks again, and catch up with you folks real soon. Thanks for everything for tonight, and see you tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. Anne-Marie Waters is in the studio with me.